Okay, hi everybody. Nice to get to talk to you guys again. You may have noticed the background behind me is different. That's because I have moved since I made your last little video or a video for you on an assignment sheet. So that's why the background is different, and I'm in the middle of unpacking, which is a little crazy. um, Before I get started on this, I want to tell you that this is going to be Unit 2, which is Analysis and Criticism. It's going to be, there's a glare in my glasses. I'm sorry if you guys are trying to watch me in that little screen and not just listening. That this is going to be our shortest unit. So the class to begin with is short, right? This is really like 3 days of in-class work. And that's because you have already established kind of a basis for doing analysis, which involves using rhetoric, following the Pease model, having a thesis, having an argument, right? So you learned that while we were going over the Illuminate files. You need to bring all of that information with you and use it in your analysis and criticism essay. So the part that we're going to be covering here really is going to be going over Mary Oliver's poems and using criticism whenever you are writing an essay. So that's going to be our focus. That's why this unit is a little bit shorter, actually kind of a lot shorter. But let me go ahead and go over this assignment sheet for you guys. Again, I think it's sometimes easier for the assignment sheets to be understood whenever they're read out loud, and then I can explain anything that may not be clear in further detail. Okay, so you guys know the drill, I assume. Most of you are already doing it. Times New Roman, 12-point font, double-spaced, page numbers, and a header, please. The length should be 4 to 5 pages, so it's a little bit longer, plus a works cited page as a separate page. So if you look at the example essays, in fact, I think any of the example essays that I have given you guys, they're going to have a works cited page, and that will show you how to set one up, although you should have learned that in UCore 101 as well. You can also go to, and I believe there's a link on our Blackboard site on the main page, to Purdue OWL. And look at their MLA style guide, and they have an example of how to do a works cited page. I also am going to provide the full citation for you for each of the 2 different articles that we're going to read about Mary Oliver's poetry. So you don't have to worry about doing that yet. That comes a little bit later. Just like last essay, this one is 20% or wait, no, last one was 15%. This one is 20% or 200 points. Again, quick turnaround on this. Your draft is due Wednesday, July 8th by midnight on Blackboard. And I'd like you to try to aim for at least 3 pages, although if you get to like 2, that's also okay if you're going to be on the shorter side with your essay. And your final is due a week from today, which is Friday, July 10th by midnight on Blackboard. Okay, so I'm just going to read over exactly what I am asking you to do here. For your second formal assignment, you will write another close analysis essay. However, in addition to closely analyzing the text, you will also make use of criticism of Mary Oliver's poetry. This criticism should help you support your own interpretation of her poetry, and we'll go over what exactly criticism is, what it means, how you use it, and how to read it too. Thus, this essay's goal should be to prove to your reader that your interpretation of Mary Oliver's poetry is correct. In other words, the goal is to convince your reader to side with your interpretation, just like you did in your previous essay too. You will strengthen your argument by using criticism. That's where criticism can be useful, and we'll talk more about that. In order to do this, you'll need to have a thesis, this is going to sound familiar, thesis at the end of your first paragraph, and an argument throughout your essay that proves your thesis. You should use specific textual examples from the novel to explain and closely analyze your ideas. By closely analyze, I mean that you should pay attention to what is said on the page and what individual words, phrases, paragraphs, and circumstances from the text mean when analyzed individually and together. Please note that you can use rhetoric to help you analyze, although it is not required for this specific essay. So essentially, right, I'm asking you guys to use the P's model for how to build an argument and write a good, strong paragraph again here. So make sure that you go back and you consult some earlier lessons if you need a refresher on that. You should use quotations, paraphrase, and summary of the text as evidence, which you then closely analyze. Your essay should not just summarize the text, right? Don't just tell me this is what happened. Mary Oliver saw some geese. She looked at some hummingbirds. She smelled the poppies. No, you have to do more than that, right? But you should instead create a clear argument about the poetry you're writing about. You can use any of the materials that we're going to talk about in class and any analysis we have done. You are encouraged, however, to bring new ideas to the table as well as your own interpretations of passages or to build off we discussed in class. You cannot use outside sources except for the criticism. Okay, so don't go and look for another essay that talks about Mary Oliver's poetry. Just use the 2 critical sources that I'm going to provide you, which I believe we're going to read next class. And then here are just, again, like I had on your first assignment sheet, some steps that I recommend you take if you're like, oh my gosh, where do I start? Which is totally legitimate. When writing an essay, I still get those feelings too of like sheer panic of how do I even begin to tackle this beast? Okay. And then down here, I have 2 prompts for you. I'm going to read these, but what I first want to note about these prompts is that you don't have to follow them exactly. So I recommend using them kind of as a starting point for yourself to get yourself thinking, but you don't necessarily have to adhere to them entirely. You can kind of use them to help you decide your own topic for your essay. So these ones are focused, like the theme of our course is, on love, but you might kind of tweak them a little bit to better fit exactly what you want to write about for your essay. I'm okay with that. Okay, so number 1 says, what kind of arguments does Mary Oliver make about the power of love to be an agent of good in her poetry? Again, power of love, very cheesy, but it is something that apparently people are writing about. Where is such love located, and how does she argue that we can practice it? How can the love she explores help readers to be better people? Examine 2 or 3 poems. Rely on one or both critical sources we read to support your argument. Okay, and the second prompt says, explore depictions of nature in Mary Oliver's poetry. That's going to be an easy one because not an easy one to write about necessarily, but it's going to be easy to choose poems for this prompt because every single poem we're going to read has a bunch of nature and natural imagery in it. What does she argue about how we can ethically interact with nature? So you might use ethos to help you here. Should our interactions with nature be based on an idea of love? How and why? Examine 2 or 3 poems. Rely on one or both critical sources we read to support your argument. Okay, and again, I note here for you that I'm not going to grade your drafts. I just give you feedback on your drafts. It's your final version that is going to be graded. And here you can actually see is the rubric that you can consult while you're writing your draft and that I will fill out and give back to you with your grade on your final version. So much like the first one, it's going to look at your thesis, your analysis, but differently, it's going to also take a look at how you're using the criticism that we read in your essay. So what I'm looking for here is that you have made use of 1 or 2 of the critical essays or pieces of criticism. This criticism is used to support the writer's argument. It is integrated as quotes, summary, and paraphrase. And I'm going to go over all of that with you guys, so no worries. Again, that you have an argument, that you have textual examples and as evidence, and that you have some kind of essay structure. And again, there's 200 points, right? And here's any bigger notes that I might leave for you down below. Okay, so that is the assignment sheet for your second essay. If you guys have any questions or you need any help, you can drop a question in the little discussion board that I post at the end of each lesson. Remember to check those to see if there were questions that people asked that maybe could help you out too. Or you can feel free to email me. We can email back and forth, or you can request to talk to me via Zoom or Skype, whatever works best for you. I hope you guys have a great day and that you enjoyed reading Mary Oliver's poetry. Okay, now I have to remember how to stop recording. Okay. Oh no.